Hey everyone, my name is Mitchell Hora. Welcome back to another TopSoil webinar. Got a special guest here with me today, Dr. King. Dr. Carolyn from our team is here. So we're going to dig through a variety of items today, talking, just kind of catching people up about what Continuum Ag has really been up to, talking about our software and the different things that we are doing to help farmers improve their profitability from improved soil health. By means of a little bit more intro, as I said, I'm Mitchell. I'm the founder and CEO here at Continuum Ag. I'm going to let Carolyn introduce herself in a little bit, but Carolyn's our VP of Operations. She's an agronomist with us, been with the team for 3 years, maybe not quite.
No, like 3.5
Three and a
almost.
half years.
Yeah,
We're getting old and stuff.
I know.
But so Carolyn's been with us kind of throughout the whole thing, or just through a lot of changes here over the last 3.5 years of Continuum Ag. So wanted to catch everyone up with like what the heck we really up to here and how does all this stuff tie together. Continuum Ag historically has always been a soil health focused company, and we still are. Soil health is very much still at our core. It's why we do what we do, to build soil health and improve family farm profitability. That's the whole point. Our mission is to help 1 million family farms improve their profitability via improving their soil health. So it's still core to everything that we're doing. And just wanted to have kind of a webinar here today about how this all ties to what we're doing now with carbon intensity, but also show people kind of some of the updates and things that we still do when it comes to regenerative ag consulting and the Haney soil health test and managing the soil data like we have historically done. So a little bit of an agenda here. I'm going to let Carolyn introduce herself, give some more of her thorough background, and maybe Carolyn, a little bit of kind of how you've seen things change too, even in your time here and before you were with Continuum. Then we're going to give a bit of an update for all the farmers who aren't able to make it today. We knew today was probably not going to be the biggest live audience, but a lot of folks that are going to be able to watch this afterwards. So I want to share a little bit of a message for them, and then we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of it, showing you guys a thorough demo of kind of what we've got going on, and show you exactly what we're doing when it comes to CI, agronomic and regenerative ag consulting, and the Haney test and those tools that we still have that are still amazing. We just don't get to show them off as much anymore as what we used to. So wanted to take the time here today to show off some of those tools. Anytime that you've got questions, be sure to put them in the chat. Happy to take those. And if you're listening to this recording afterwards, talk to your Continuum Ag rep. Happy to answer your questions. We do our chit chats every Tuesday at 7:45 Central Time if you have other questions as well. But Carolyn, thanks for taking the time to hang out here today. Maybe give a little bit more of kind of your thorough background and stuff of, growing up and your family's farm, through to your schooling and now what you're doing here with Continuum.
Yeah. Yeah, this is exciting. I have 3.5 years and this is my first Topsoil podcast appearance.
Oh,
So I know it's a big, big day. But yeah, my name is Carolyn King. I am the VP of Operations here at Continuum. I grew up on my family's farm in Western Illinois. My grandfather was a very early adopter in our area of no-till and cover crops. So soil health has pretty much always been a part of my life. I didn't really know anything different for a long time. Where I live now, it's about 2 hours west of the farm, so still get home quite a bit to help out. But not there in all of the day-to-day stuff. I got my bachelor's degree in agronomy from Iowa State. That's kind of how Mitchell and I initially knew each other. He was good friends with my partner, Zach. So that's where our connection really started. And then spent the first couple of years of my career in plant breeding. I worked for a seed company out of Oskaloosa, Iowa here. And I always knew that plant breeding wasn't really what I was interested in, but it was a good stepping stone to kind of get started and get moved down to Southeast Iowa. And then from there, started working at Continuum in early 2021, and the rest is history.
So a lot of what you started off with, we were doing a lot of soil sampling, the Haney test. You've done a bunch of work on the Haney test. Maybe share a little bit on that. And can people find your paper and stuff online too?
Yeah, I don't know where the link to that is, but we can get it sent out to people. Yeah, so I just recently finished my master's degree in agronomy. Mitch calls me Dr. King, but I am not a doctor. Just my master's degree. But my work really focused on using all these years of weekly Haney soil data that we've been collecting on the Hora farm. So Mitchell and the crew started pulling the weeklies in 2018. We still are doing it here today in 2024, but really trying to look at what are the differences in the Haney test results in a cover crop, no cover crop trial. So my thesis project was to really dig into all of that and just look at where are the consistencies or differences. Are there certain temporal dynamics that we continue to see in certain cases or not? So we really took all of that data and broke it down into every piece imaginable to try to dig into exactly what is the Haney test showing us in this system. Some of the biggest things that we found from that, of course, was that in the cover crop system, the soil health was better on a multitude of different parameters, the biological activity, organic nitrogen, MAC, soil health calculation, those were kind of the big ones. But then the other really interesting piece of that was that it was primarily in a soybean year that the data was really significant. So showing that if you are using cover crops and really leaving those covers as long as possible, like Brian is out on the farm, we can push the needle a lot harder in that soybean year than we can in the corn year.
Makes
So
a
a
lot
lot
of
of cool
sense.
stuff. Yeah.
I mean, because primarily the data you're talking, right? So historically, like to recap, Continuum Ag's always been very focused on the Haney soil health test. We're teeing this up that we're going to show a little bit about the Haney test and some of the soil health data. But yeah, Carolyn dug into a bunch of the real in-depth stuff that we've been doing. We've been doing weekly soil health testing for what, 5, 6 years now. So
Mhm.
really, really intense data collection. And it shows the biggest positive results on the soybean year, because on the soybean year we plant beans. I literally just got a text that dad is going to go and put some beans in the ground right now. So we're going to go get some stuff planted here today. But we put the beans into cereal rye when the rye is fairly small, and then let the rye and the beans grow together. And the rye ends up going to maturity, heading
Mhm.
out, starting to drop pollen. Then we come through with one pass of herbicide, no residuals. So there's no fungus, there's been no insecticide, no fungicide, no pesticides at all in that whole system, and no fertilizer or anything. And we're getting huge cereal rye biomass. Plus, we've got the soybeans out there. And so it makes a ton of sense that we're seeing big soil health gains on that soybean year. And inversely, on the corn year, we plant green, and then we typically terminate about 10 days after planting. And we usually anywhere from 5 to 10 days after planting, depends on how big it is, depends on the moisture that we've got in the soil. So if that rye is really taken off and we don't have the moisture, we get it killed. If it's really wet out there, we utilize that living root to help to wick extra moisture away and keep that soil condition in prime shape for that crop that we just planted into it, into that living cover crop. So yeah, it makes a ton of sense that it would be, where we've got the big cover, really seeing the gains. And in that trial that you had there, Carolyn, it was only pretty much always only cereal rye, right? Really not a lot of diversity in it. Especially if we were to get more diversity ahead of the corn, I bet we could have gotten a little bit more of a positive result. But I always preach it as we're really maximizing the soil health gain on that soybean year, because we got the soybeans planted into the rye, let the rye get big, either take it all the way to harvest where we're relay cropping it, or terminate the rye with a pesticide. But we can use light rates at that point and really not screw things up that much. Versus in our corn year, our cover crop usually only is 12 to 20 inches tall by the time we're getting it killed. Corn's a wussy, and because we're trying to grow 280 to 300 bushel corn in a lot of cases too, and doing that with like 160 units of nitrogen. So we're trying to really push the envelope, and especially to do that on the soybean year. So any other takeaways, Carolyn, on kind of what else you saw on that project there, or things that you're
Yeah.
looking for now? Because I know we're still doing some of that soil sampling.
Mhm. Yeah, so there's of course tons of stuff in there. I spent 3 years working on all of this data, so we could spend the whole hour just talking about that. But I mean, some of the other like really high level things that we monitored yield, of course, in that trial as well, just as part of it. And did see some differences in yield in the cover versus no cover, but nothing that was significant or super noteworthy. On the soybeans, the cover crop yield was always better than the no cover. On the corn, the cover crop was a little bit lower, but I think it, wasn't enough to be statistically significant. So just like showing that we can do all of this, we can see these major soil health gains and not have a negative impact on the yield, which I think for most people is the biggest piece that they're really worried about. Yeah, we're continuing, like Mitchell said, to pull these samples and dig into this data. We've got the weekly started already for this year. Our shout out to our high school intern, Peggy. She has been rolling on those for a couple weeks now. So we'll continue to add that data into this data set, run all of the statistics year after year, and just see if there's anything different that we find now that this trial is in, year 7 and beyond.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's good to continue doing it. I don't know how long we will, but but at least good to keep it going for right now anyway. And nobody else has this intensive a data set like we do of weekly soil sampling over and over and over and over from the same points, and then a replicated multi-year trial. So those spots that are the no cover crop strips, those are the only place on our farm that doesn't get cover crop. So it's the last just, I don't know what there is there, maybe 3 to 5 acres on our operation that's never had a cover crop. Everything else gets covered every year. But okay, so this dials into kind of what we're going to get into, right? With utilizing this soil data to take your system to the next level, especially what you were getting at, where we're seeing improved biological activity. We're seeing improved nutrient cycling, especially organic nitrogen you had mentioned. We're getting better conversion. So we'll come back to that here later on. But I want to give a little bit of kind of a mini segment here for especially farmers that aren't going to necessarily be watching the screen, but rather those farmers that are going to be out in their tractors and maybe listening to this. So I want to give a quick little segment here as far as what should you be thinking about as you are planting here this year. So a lot of it in my mind, what should you be thinking about in the cab here this year? Be thinking about CI, carbon intensity. It's basically the carbon footprint of the bushels that you are putting, the bushels that will come off the seed that you're putting in the ground. That seed and the carbon footprint of the bushels will end up being part of the carbon footprint of whoever's going to utilize those bushels. So farmers are part of the scope 3 carbon footprint of whoever the next player downstream is in your supply chain. That company, whether it be a ethanol manufacturer, a pork producer, or some other kind of, an export organization or other kind of processor, they are looking more and more at better understanding what is their carbon footprint. And the carbon footprint of your farm and of the bushels that you are producing is part of their carbon footprint. And the unit of measure on that, specifically in the biofuel space, is carbon intensity. Carbon intensity, like I said, the carbon footprint of a bushel or the carbon footprint of a gallon of ethanol, it's measured in units of grams of GHG equivalent per megajoule of energy. And GHG is the same as a CO2 equivalent or a carbon equivalent, but GHG is greenhouse gas. So it's a standard unit of measure so we can compare your carbon footprint. And your carbon footprint is made up of not just your carbon dioxide that's emitted through tillage and natural processes, but also through the burning of fossil fuels or the utilization of other agricultural products. Part of your carbon footprint is also your fertilizer usage, and your the synthetic fertilizer specifically has a big carbon footprint in the nitrous oxide impact. And for those of you utilizing livestock and animals in the operation, it could have a methane impact as well. And just natural cycling has a methane greenhouse gas impact as well, just through natural process and biological function. But that entire footprint and the whole impact of your operation can be quantified as your carbon intensity score. And that score comes from the Department of Energy. And the calculator that they use is called the GREET model. That's GREET. It's an acronym about the greenhouse gas emissions, or greenhouse gas impact and regulated emissions coming out of transportation. But a big complicated calculator that they're able to utilize to compare fossil fuel gasoline versus ethanol versus jet fuel versus whatever, but being able to have a consistent level playing field. The bushels that we're producing on our farms, we run that CI score. We're going to show a demo of it for folks that are watching this, and it'll be on YouTube as well for anyone that wants to go back and see how we're running these scores. But as you're in the cab, be thinking about how you are managing your operation and how you are driving yield, but also how you are going to be impacting your carbon intensity. So it all ties together, and we need to be managing for that. Carolyn, any other thoughts on that kind of initial take? Maybe some of the conversations you're having with people that are thinking about their GREET score.
Yeah. So at this point, for a lot of people, they've kind of done what they've already done for the year in terms of being able to change their CI score. We have been having some conversations with people about dialing in any spring fertility or nitrogen applications in season, and those could really help. That's kind of where this ties back to the Haney test and like using that to get the most accurate fertilizer recommendation possible. So improving your in-season fertility or anything you have left to do there can definitely help your CI score. If you haven't done your spring tillage yet, you could consider skipping that to help with your CI score too. But outside of that, there's not a whole lot at this point, with planters rolling, that we can really change. I think the big thing to keep in mind is that fall will be here before we know it. And at that point in time, like you're getting ready for your CI score for the following year. So the way that the GREET model and most of carbon programs work is they run harvest to harvest for that crop year. So anything that happens after harvest this fall goes on as the 2025 crop. So that's where like planting a cover crop this fall can be massive for your CI score. Again, like dialing in your fall fertility, skipping that fall tillage, just be thinking about all of those things. I know right now that's not on anybody's mind, but it always seems like getting cover crop plans and things put together for the fall comes like way faster than we would have expected. So keep that in the back of your head as you're sitting in the tractor with things to think about, for sure.
Yeah, it's a good point. A lot of dust to settle yet when it comes to the CI thing for the 2024 season. Why this is all important is that there's a new tax credit that is positioned to make some major impact in this space. And that's called 45Z. It's part of the Inflation Reduction Act. And it provides tax credits for biofuel manufacturers. And it's a clean transportation fuel tax credit. But part of the footprint of those biofuels comes from the corn. So Carolyn's exactly right. I mean, you're only going to be able to kind of tweak your CI score a little bit here this year. We still encourage you to take a look and to think about your impact on your carbon intensity when you're thinking about that extra pass of pesticide or thinking about your side dress application. Those minute tweaks could still have some major impact. So be checking out your score. And again, we're going to show exactly how we think through that here in just a little bit. But farmers that are in the cab, I think one of my other key messages for you is, since 45Z starts less than a year from now, January 1, we need to be quantifying our footprint of our bushels for this year. So I think the biggest thing that we got to be doing is that we need to be documenting every single trip across the field. Okay, so to Carolyn's point, the practices, kind of what's done is done. You either got the cover crop on last fall or you didn't. You either have already done tillage or maybe you didn't. But no matter what, you're going to have to document and have to have the data put together so that the practices and the score can go through a third-party verification so that you're in position to potentially monetize those low carbon bushels starting as early as this fall, and especially as we go into next year. What you can start with is getting that CI score and work with a Continuum Ag representative who can help you with documentation and the verification. We call it CI certification here at Continuum Ag. It's $5 an acre, and we help you with all that documentation of tracking every pass across the field, getting the data organized and housed in our system so it can go through verification later on this fall. It's $5. And talk to your rep. And that's something that you can be talked through while you're driving the tractor as well. Happy to talk you through it or answer your questions and share thoughts on what could be really insane value for the things that we're doing on our farm. And then, be thinking about ways that you can change your practices as you go into the 2025 growing season. For CI, we oftentimes talk about corn, but this does work for soybeans as well. So low CI corn going into ethanol, big deal, but low CI soybeans going to crush and going into biodiesel is a big opportunity as well. So, but it all takes data. It all takes documenting our farming practices, and we need to be doing that here now. Keep good records, and we'll help you. We'll help you to make sure that it all gets done. So, other couple things on CI overall, as we think about it from the cab. The new GREET model is supposed to come out anytime. Now, we've been saying that for a month and a half because it was supposed to come out on March 1st, but there's more and more murmurs about how close it's getting, more and more announcements coming out there. What continues to resonate from these announcements and from the rumors coming out of DC is that the new GREET model, they're calling it the modified GREET model, it's basically going to hurt all US ethanol or biofuels based on the concept of indirect land use change. That means that your ground that you're planting corn on right now, it could be prairie or it could be forest. Well, it's not going to be, and it probably hasn't been for more than 100 years. If it's anything like on my farm, we've been farming it for 150 years. It's not, it hasn't been prairie for a long time, but still this concept of indirect land use change is part of the conversation. So what it will do, and what we are hearing, is that instead of the ethanol starting with a CI score of around a 55, most ethanol plants have a CI score of around 55 for simplicity's sake. Instead of starting at 55, they're probably going to be starting more like 60, maybe worse. And in order to get in the money with 45Z, they've got to get their score below 50. So with the modified GREET update, if they do dock us for indirect land use change and cause us to start further from 50, it's going to be tougher to get in the money. It's going to take more low carbon corn or more aggressive measures such as carbon capture systems, whether that be a pipeline or a different type of carbon capture program. It could take additional things for improved energy efficiency, like combined heat and power. There's a variety of different levers that these ethanol plants can pull on. And hopefully we get some clarity on it here really soon. So probably going to be starting from a worse spot. The good news, though, what continues to come out of DC is that they are going to include the on-farm practices, like the cover crops, the no-till, the fertilizer practices that we're doing, or the manure practices that we're doing. They're going to allow for that to be included, is everything we're hearing. So everyone's going to be starting from a worse baseline CI score. However, we're going to have these on-farm practices that we've been preaching now for, well, on a CI perspective, we've been preaching it hardcore for a year, but they're going to give you credit for the on-farm practices. Again, we don't know the details, but gosh darn, this is huge and speaks to everything we've been preaching, that you need to know what your score is. You need to know how to improve your score, and you've got to document these on-farm practices so that your low carbon farming can be utilized to create low carbon biofuel. And by creating low carbon biofuel, we can generate tax credits, bring those dollars to our rural communities. And how the math works out, it appears to be plenty big enough opportunity to create some economic value for the farmers and for those biofuel folks, and others around them too, like agronomists and maybe even companies like Continuum Ag. Maybe we'll even maybe be able to make a little bit of money on this thing too. By trying to make these markets really happen here. So Plenty of a rant there, Carolyn. Anything that I missed for the farmers that are in their cabs besides document, know your score, pay attention, maybe join the chit chat or check out our YouTube page if you like listening to YouTube videos while you're planting corn.
Yeah, no, I think you hit it all. The documentation is the most important part. Without the data, there's no way to verify what you said you did. So therefore there's no way for you to earn that potential premium. So that's at this point the most important part. Just keep track of everything that you're doing. Shape files and as applied maps are like the gold standard for all of this, we're assuming, but it can be, a picture of your cover crop out there growing and all kinds of different things. So just make sure that you're documenting every single pass that goes across the field. If you have questions about how to do that or what that looks like, your Continuum Ag rep or TopSoil rep, if you work with a dealer, can help you to navigate all of that, but just be keeping track of every single thing that you're doing.
That's right. It's just like the organic farmers do, right? They document their farm practices and they have to go through an audit every year in order to get verified as organic. We're not getting verified as low carbon. We're getting verified based on the actual score. And if you're going to substantiate that score, you've got to provide the evidence that you did what you say you did. And that's why we're here to help and why we're pushing on this now. So with that, good luck out there as you're planting. Be safe. And we're happy to help and answer more questions. Let's switch gears here a little bit for on the webinar side of things and show and tell a little bit, kind of starting from the top, Carolyn, if we would, and we'll kind of buzz through things quick. Folks, if you do have any questions, be sure to put them in the chat, but let's go through just kind of start to finish, get that CI score. Here's how you sign up for certification, but we also offer a couple other services to help you to improve your score as well, including our Regen Roadmap and our Haney soil health testing. So I wanted to just show people what we've been up to when it comes to topsoil. And you can see exactly how all this works in our system.
Yeah. I think we should start from the beginning, and you could kind of give people a little bit of a rundown of like where Continuum Ag started, and we can do the Haney testing and stuff first, and then we'll work our way into what's happening today.
Backwards, that sounds good. Yeah. So when I started Continuum Ag, I was at Iowa State and got connected with the Haney soil health test through an internship that I was dabbling in it with just a couple dozen samples. Got connected with some guys from South Africa who sent me a bunch of their data, and I helped them to dig through their data and provide some recommendations. And at the end, they said, "Hey, send us an invoice. We want to compensate you for all this work that you did and the reports and stuff that I created for them." And I didn't know what the heck I was doing to send them an invoice and get compensated. And thus Continuum Ag was born. I knew that I wanted to start my own gig, but it was that initial project that I did with the South Africans that launched things. So the Haney soil health test was really my niche. My background is, of course, as a farmer, seventh generation on my family's farm, but also I've got a degree in agronomy and a degree in ag systems technology, and use the Haney test to really be able to help farmers to quantify what's going on below their soils and manage fertilizer better. On my own family farm, we were doing traditional grid soil sampling with traditional malic extraction, and the results just were not making sense. And Dad was really frustrated. And then I brought this Haney test back and we started using it, and it just made so much more sense. And we started using the Haney test right at the same time that we were starting to really experiment with cover crops and ramp up those efforts. So this was 2015, going into 2016. And so I was doing the consulting and doing the Haney test and doing sampling, but not really in a good, consistent manner. We were mostly A/B testing. We were doing trials, not necessarily zones. And but we knew that we needed a better way to be able to utilize the Haney test in a precision ag setting. The solution wasn't there, so we built our own. And in late 2018 throughout 2019, started dabbling and building some software and building it for our own internal purposes. Then we launched it publicly in early 2020. So Carolyn, if you want to show some of that, what
Yeah.
essentially in the Haney test, what we have done with the with topsoil, and this is just on some of Dad's stuff. So um, we'll show where you can still navigate to the Haney testing stuff, but essentially what we're doing is any farm can be mapped out, and then we've created a zone creation system that pulls in existing data from public records. So that data, including the including the soil type, slope, elevation. Hopefully your internet's going to go here,
I
Carol.
know. It's slowing
But
down.
the
We'll try.
slope, elevation, and the soil types out there. So Carolyn will pull back up Dad's and show you. And there you can see all of our farms that we're working with. Last I'd seen, we're well over 4 million acres in topsoil here now. Probably more than that. I haven't seen an updated number for a while, but millions of acres in the system, which has been really exciting to see. But at the core, we still have some of these old tools here to be able to map out that Haney test. Here it goes.
There we go.
So just from a boundary, we can bring in the slope and elevation and run zones that look like this. Carolyn, you want to maybe explain those a little bit more? Or?
Yeah. So these are a little bit older version of our zones, but this farm is the one that we have the most data on, so it's good to show. Essentially what we do when you put in a field boundary is we automatically pull in these different USGS and Sergo data layers, so slope, elevation, soil type, all that good stuff. We map all of that straight off of the boundary, and then from there, we run a variability analysis. That analysis clusters like parts of the field together, which is how we get this zone map. So it's super easy from the perspective of our agronomists that we just put the field boundary in, tell it which parameters we want to include in the variability analysis, and then look at the total acres for the field and say, okay, this is how many zones we want. So this field is 75 acres almost. It's got 8 zones, so we can stick to that 10-acre zone that we've always done. And then from here is how we're pulling those soil samples. So we come out, we pull the samples, one in each zone, and then when the data comes back from the lab, we can automatically map it here in topsoil. And then of course, from this also run those fertilizer recommendations too.
Yeah, so essentially at the beginning, I just needed a way to be able to map out our Haney results. Number one, I needed a way to create zones. We built that, and it's scalable and automated and works anywhere in the continental US. Pretty slick. And then you can pull up the zone map on your iPad, especially on an iPad is usually how we use it when we're soil sampling, and it tracks your location. So you can pull samples based on those zones, send those samples to the lab. We have data integration with the Regen Ag Lab. That's Dr. Lance Gunderson, and Dr. Rick Haney works very closely with him over there. So we've got this automated system of data connectivity with the lab that each one of these zones gets a soil sample pulled. We send the soil to the lab, and then their report automatically goes back into our system. And then we can push a couple buttons and make our recommendations. So we've essentially just taken what used to take me like a day to do one farmer to now we can run a farmer's entire farm worth of recommendations in what, less than an hour, Carolyn?
Yeah.
Probably less than that. I
Yep.
mean, really automated and scaled our system here all the way to that recommendation. Then every single one of these maps can be exported as the actual shapefile. The recommendations can be made. And Carol, maybe explain some of the reports that you can make as well for agronomists or farmers that would like help using the Haney test.
Yeah. So we've put together essentially reports from all of the soil data. So when you do soil sampling through us, we'll sit down with you and go through every single parameter in the Haney test. We know that a lot of people are newer to it. And now we have such a big data set that we've stared at enough Haney results to kind of know what we're looking for here. So we'll sit down with people and walk through all of that, but then we'll also have a report with all of these different maps in there to really show you here, based on the color scale, is where, we think you need to be. Hopefully my internet well, hold on, it's not wanting to pull up any of these maps, but we use the legend to really show here's where we want you to be within these parameters, and can export those reports to you so that you've got something easy to look at it, in the cab, or if your internet's not working very well like mine is today, you can pull those up and do it there.
Well, but we can have all the reports and stuff made when we're actually in the office. Obviously, neither
Yeah.
of us are here today. But we also, a couple things to note here too. I like that, I wanted to be able to see my soil data and stuff when I'm in the field, and this works on a phone. You can be out there in the field, pull up your maps and see what's going on out there if you see an anomaly. We also have a scouting tool there in the upper left on the
Yep.
little pin. You can drop a pin, add a photo, and document the things that are happening out there in your farm. And the other piece that I think is really cool, that it takes a whole different webinar on its own, but we can actually cross correlate the soil data to the yield. So
Yeah.
at the end of the year, up in the upper right-hand corner, there's an upload data button. So any shape files or any type of data can be uploaded into TopSoil. Especially if we have a yield file, we can actually run statistical regressions between the soil health data and yield. And essentially what we are able to do is calibrate the Haney test per field. Okay, so people ask a lot, well, how is the Haney test recommendations and stuff different? Well, in our system, what we are showing you with the Haney test is what is actually available. Now Carolyn really broke it.
I know.
But we're showing you what is actually available in your soils, and then cross correlating that soil data to the yield. And we run all this in the back end, and obviously it's a big computing kind of thing, but showing you as a farmer what is actually driving yield and what is actually the most limiting factors to yield and what has no correlation to yield. And that's part of why we've cut back on especially our P&K. We've cut back so hard because we actually don't see any statistical correlation between the inorganic P&K to yield on our farm. But we do see a direct correlation between the water extractable carbon and the biological activity to yield. So we focus on building those components and thus driving yield and letting the natural system cycle the nutrients and get us the nutrients that the plant needs for us. So very, very cool stuff. It takes, like I said, way more than what we can show on a webinar here today, but being able to utilize that soil data, not just for a short-term variable rate recommendation, but also for those statistical regressions and fine-tuning your fertilizer program to the field. Not just using the overall recommendations, not using just a university recommendation. We use those to start with, but then we can fine-tune and tweak based on what is your data, what is your field and your yield, what is it telling us? So very, very cool deal. But anyway, so if people want more info on the Haney test, they can contact info@continuum.ag or contact Sophia. Soph runs our soil sample department here now. As we've grown, we've had to really just kind of make that its own thing. The Haney test used to be our main thing. Now it's kind of our final add-on and a nice to have. So contact Sophia at continuum.ag or send us a message, hit us up. We'll connect with Sophia if you want to see more about the Haney test. So beyond the Haney test, one of the other things that we built, so back to my story, I started off doing the Haney test. And what we found is that just fertility management isn't enough. We got to look more holistically when we're adopting regenerative ag practices, more holistically in regards to managing cover crop blends, managing pesticides, managing equipment, managing all of our data. So one of the other things we've built is our actual field profiles and some of our Regen Roadmap tools here. So what we are able to do, this is again part of some of the old system here. So what we were able to do though is this historical baseline is in the middle. So this is again back on some of the stuff on our farm. But we're documenting, here's what we're planning, here's kind of what we've historically done, or here's just a plan. And then we're putting together recommendations. Most farms, of course, aren't necessarily using cover crops today, so they would not have anything there in that historical baseline. Then we have a system built out here to make the recommendations. What we're then able to do is take those recommendations from a holistic, it's got everything in here. It's got pesticides. It's got, if we are doing tillage or reducing tillage, it's got plans for that. The fertilizer, we already showed the fertilizer practices are in the maps. And we're able to just really dial in our recommendations over time. From there, we can deploy these recommendations to individual fields. So we can take those recommendations, distribute them to individual fields, like what Carolyn's showing here, and now have a dialed in Regen Ag plan for every field in the operation. So now we are going into the year with a plan, and it's in writing so that at Continuum Ag, we can all be on the same page as the farmer. Farmer can be on the same page with us, and we can utilize those reports to really keep good records, document over time. So, especially as we're going into next year's growing season, a lot of farms are really going to need to dial in their Regen Ag plans, because so many people, I believe, are going to continue to add more practices like no-tilling and cover cropping and such, because of these opportunities that CI is bringing to the table. So as more farmers want to change practices, we've got the infrastructure built out to help and enable them to do it. Carolyn, anything on this you want to show, or do you want to maybe show what one of the field plans looks like?
Let's see if it'll let me.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, so the big thing with this is, like Mitchell has been alluding to, we very much started as like a Haney testing soil sampling company. And then from there, we knew that a lot of the farmers we were working with were, of course, already asking questions about how to cover crop and how to do reduced tillage and all of these regenerative practices. So it was a pretty easy next step for us to say, okay, how do we take these like recommendations that we're giving and actually make it scalable, so it's not just Mitchell and I answering the phone all day long trying to help people, but actually get other people on board and try to use the software to really bring it to the next level. So the Regen Roadmap was really the next step out of all of that. We've got on my team, so like Mitch said, Sophia runs the soil sampling, Haney testing stuff, and then I've got 4 Regen Success agronomists that really help with all of the Regen Roadmap things here. And then of course, all of the CI stuff that we'll get to next. But we've got a whole crew of agronomy people that are happy to help and have, you know, a variety of backgrounds and experience in a lot of different locations throughout the country. So not just based in Iowa, but people all over the place now to really help make these recommendations fit your actual operation.
Yeah, actually, only one of those Regen Success agronomists is based in Iowa, and
That's
he's
right.
originally from Pennsylvania.
Yeah, that's right.
And so Steve from out in Pennsylvania, Joel is down in Kentucky, Sam is out in Nebraska, and Dean is up in South Dakota. So, and then of course us here in Iowa. But so yeah, really just trying to build systems that we're getting so many farmers coming to the party here, and so many agronomists that need help and need systems. So we've just really been building out those tools for scale. Part of this, as well as we've been documenting what the farmer was planning on doing versus what actually happened, trying to keep good records, and really assisting farmers with participating in carbon or other sustainability programs. We don't need to show it here, but if back at the top, Carolyn, there's the orange download button. Mm-hmm. That provides a report that we then can, the farmer can utilize and pass along their PDF report as to the practices that they did on their farm. We're redoing this entire thing, as you guys can see with the demo here today. Plenty of stuff in this old legacy system that relatively clunky. Redoing a bunch of stuff as we scale this thing out for CI certification. So that's due to come out in just another couple of weeks, to have our new documentation tools, our new actuals tool built all out, so that we can be documenting our farm practices in 2024, again, for CI certification. But I think so much of this, to me, we built this because farmers need to have a plan. And as we're dealing with so many farmers now, the plan couldn't just be pencil and paper, or the plan couldn't just be housed between our ears, but we had to develop systems. And this has really, really worked well to keep everyone on the same page and just keep good records And now it's going to be even more valuable than ever. So, which brings us to what we're doing today,
Yeah.
which is the new updated version of TopSoil. This is what you actually see when you log into TopSoil. You select your name. If you're a farmer, you only see your name, but at the bottom is maybe, Carol, where we can show at the very bottom, you can
Yep.
use that soil sample or the Regen Roadmap button. Those actually take you to legacy topsoil that we were just showing.
Mhm.
So if you're looking at your soil data or you want to utilize some of those old tools that we have built out, you can still access them through topsoil. But by and large, of course, we're building things with a focus on CI certification first. So how I think about all this stuff is when I started Continuum Ag, it was soil sampling first and the Haney test. Then it was, okay, let's manage and do Regen Ag consulting. And then it was, okay, we can take that and create a report and maybe make a premium or maybe participate in a sustainability program. And that was the chronological order: Haney testing, consulting, then maybe there's a sustainability program. Well, today the process is flipped. We start with CI because it's a massive opportunity. Then if you want some help with these practices, you want some consulting, you want some regenerative ag support, we can still offer that, but that's just an upsell to the CI stuff that we've been really focused on. Then if you want to take things to the next level and you want some Haney data, okay, that's an additional thing as a bonus add-on that will bring Sophia into the fold and the rest of her team, and they get you the rest of the soil data that you need to really take this to the next level. So, but primary focus today is farmers get your CI score and get your data documented so that you can get verified and hopefully be able to get paid. And if it's anything like the Inflation Reduction Act states, anything like what's in the law, what you can get paid could be a huge, huge deal. So that's why we got to focus on it. And that's why Continuum Ag, basically Christmas of last year, I completely flipped the company on its head, seeing this CI thing coming and knowing that we have got to get the systems built out and get in position to help farmers capitalize.
Yeah. It was a pretty natural progression for us, I feel like, too, though, because the mission has always been to help 1 million farmers profit from improved soil health. And we have been trying to do it with the Haney testing. We've been trying to do it with the Regen Roadmap, but it's really hard to soil sample all of these acres. And it's really hard to get that many people on board with regenerative practices. So I feel like CI is finally the thing that's like getting people really excited about doing the stuff that we started with.
Yeah.
When there's actual big dollars on the table, like what we've been showing and talking about, it makes it a lot easier for farmers to make that change or make that commitment to a practice that maybe they were a little bit nervous about before because there wasn't any direct payment to them for doing that thing. So it always will come back to the principles of soil health and what you really started here. Like the foundation of it, I think will always be those things, but it's just a different way of looking at it. And I hope that CI is like the gateway to getting all of these people to do soil health practices, make it a lot easier for them to want to participate.
Well, that's part of how you can improve your score, right? One of the biggest
Yep.
ways to improve your score, use cover crops, reduce tillage, improve your fertilizer management, deploy, manure and other more natural fertilizers. So all of that ties in with improving your score. Carolyn, maybe want to, I don't know if we have to walk through the details.
Yeah.
We have the other stuff on our YouTube page about the details as to how to run a score, but basically, here's again, showing some of ours with our practices. And the GREET model, we're seeing a score of negative 5.6. We can toggle practices, play with our fertilizer recommendations, and see changes to our scores. So as you recalculate, but right below that recalculate button there is where you can get CI certification. So as you're playing with your score, as you're seeing, okay, I got to get ready for this, and I got to have some help getting my data documented because I need to get verified. That's what we're here for. $5, we help you to get verified, help you to pull all this data together, pulling that data in from your John Deere Ops Center or Field View or from the co-op or your handwritten notes, whatever it may be. we got to get on getting all this data pulled together, because you're gonna need it come this fall and come calendar year 2025. So it is it's really, really happening. So get your ducks in a row, get the data pulled together, be ready for these opportunities here. But I think that's the main. Oh yeah, maybe
Yeah, do
yeah.
we want to look at the customer journey
Yeah,
for
that's a good
CI?
idea.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. So here's how we think about how all this stuff ties together, right? So step one is know what your score is today, and you can do that at TopSoil.ag, like Karen was just showing. Hit that CI, the farm profile, and you can unlock your score. You can use the code BBC95 for the billion bushel challenge. Get your code for just $25. Then you can enroll in certification. From there, we've got to get all of your data integrated. So the boundary files, we got to be on the same page, and we do an onboarding workshop to get all your data brought in. Then we've got to document your farming practices. So that's everything: fertilizer, tillage, cover crop, everything that already may have happened this past fall, and everything that's going to happen this year. Your planting records, fertilizer, pesticides, harvest, the yield data, all of that's got to be pulled together. At the end of the year, there's an attestation, just like there is for federal crop insurance. And you can then say, yep, I want to get verified, send my data to the third party, send that data to them. They give you the stamp of approval that you've got a verified CI score. And then you're able to utilize our tools to push your data to whoever's going to compensate you for it, or whoever you want to work with, whether that be an ethanol plant or your co-op gets a program put together, whoever that may be, that's going to utilize that organized, verified data. They go and you get paid. So, and then, like I said, if you want help taking things to the next level, we still offer that stuff. But CI is just the main thing that we've really been focused on, especially for the last year and a half. It's such a big deal, and more farmers need to be ready for it.
Yeah, it's here, it's happening.
In conclusion, to wrap a couple things up, want to give a big shout out to the Topsoil Summit. Topsoil Summit is on June 3rd. Check your email. You should have gotten information about it. You can also go to the Continuum.ag website, and under our events page there, you can find more info about the Topsoil Summit. We haven't announced any of the speakers quite yet, but working on some really, really big names, and some big time companies. I'm amazed. Little spoiler alert: one of the biggest airlines in the country has one of their folks is coming and speaking. An airline company coming to our small town Iowa farmer event, right? Like, the worlds are coming together here, right? That what we're doing on the farm has a huge impact internal to the supply chain, especially when it comes to biofuels, and to food and all these things that we are producing on our farms. And when these big airlines, they want to come and share what they're working on, and they want to work closer with farmers, and we're together here. Yeah, thanks, Diana. Use code TS24. That's our early bird code. You get 50% off of your registration. So it's just $25 to come when you use code TS24. If you want to sponsor, we are still bringing on some sponsors. The big sponsor, I think I'll take it now, but there is still some opportunity for folks that want to sponsor. Hit us up or contact marketing@continuum.ag. But June 3rd, Carolyn, you've been through multiple Topsoil summits now, and keep cranking things up. Going fancier and fancier, but this is obviously by far going to be our biggest one yet. The caliber of folks that they're signed up, the speakers, like, it's a big deal, and something that is just so beyond everything that I had in mind when I started building Continuum Ag. That, like, holy crap, this is big. Like, it's a big deal. So hopefully people come and join us on June 3rd if they're able to.
Yep. Yeah, lots changed in the last 3.5 years. When I started, we were just pulling soil samples and had no idea that CI was going to be such a big opportunity. So definitely come to the event. It's always a fun time. Lots of great networking and good speakers, and just really able to spend a full day hanging out and learning and meeting new people. So it'll be good.
It'll be awesome. Well, Carolyn, any final thoughts? I think good little demo here. Hopefully folks had some value in that. It'll be recorded, especially be clipped up and utilizing stuff if you want to see a little bit more details on what we have going on here. But Carolyn, thanks for taking the time. And for all of you, join us on the CI Chit Chat tomorrow. We'll get into some more specifics about CI, and we'll catch you on the next webinar here in the future. Thanks everyone, and have a great day.